Have you ever heard about your shadow and how often do you judge other people just because they're different from you? If this doesn't apply to you, think about how many of your friends or relatives blame others while driving, mock people they consider freaks, or even laugh in their faces. If you don't have such people around you, consider yourself lucky, and I hope you never meet them. But life isn't as sweet as we'd like it to be. We can divide people into a few groups. Those who openly judge and blame others, to the point that it could even be considered a mental disorder, like narcissistic personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder, where individuals lack empathy and have a deep need to feel superior. Those who judge in small groups. For example, when you and a friend laugh at someone at the gym, the person doesn't realize they're being judged, but you still make comments about them. Those who judge silently. They constantly have critical thoughts about others, but never say them out loud. And those who don't judge or blame at all, either because they don't know how or simply don't see the point. Think about yourself. Which group do you belong to? How often do you discuss other people with your friends? Or even when you're alone with your own thoughts. Pause this video for a moment and reflect. When was the last time you had a negative thought about someone else? Maybe you caught yourself thinking, she's so fat, or how could he even wear that colorful jacket to a business meeting? Or perhaps you had a moment at a restaurant, wondering, I'd like to see the guy who made this burger because it's terrible. Any situation where you felt anger, humiliation, or another negative emotion that led to judgment or blame. Those are the moments I'm talking about. I won't lie to you, I used to judge people a lot, but for the past 4 months, I've been making a real effort to change. And in the process, I found an incredible tool that helps me see reality more clearly. Before I share it with you, let's take a step back and ask, why do we judge others? Why do we feel this strong urge to blame, even when the person we're judging isn't around and can't respond? From my perspective, I've identified two, maybe even three key reasons behind this behavior, and let's talk about them. Projection, our shadow in action. According to Carl Jung's theory of the shadowy self, we tend to project our own hidden insecurities, fears, and weaknesses onto others. When we judge someone for being lazy, rude, or irresponsible, it might actually be a trait we unconsciously recognize in ourselves, but don't want to admit. This defense mechanism helps protect our self-image by externalizing unwanted parts of our personality. And here's an example. You get annoyed when someone brags about their success, but deep down you might be suppressing your own need for recognition. I also want to mention one of the best films about psychotherapy directed by Jonah Hill, where he focused on his therapist Dr. Phil Stutz. The movie explores Stutz's therapeutic methods and philosophy on mental health, offering practical tools to help people manage emotions, self-doubt, and personal struggles. I will 100% make a video about all those tools because it's a hidden gem, and those tools will be helpful for everyone who wants to know more about our behaviors, mental health, and find some tools to make our life easier. The shadow theory is one of those tools and it's very interesting, so subscribe to my channel and follow for my future videos. Social comparison, the need to feel superior. Leon Festinger's social comparison theory suggests that we naturally compare ourselves to others to evaluate our self-worth. When we criticize someone, it can give us a temporary ego boost, making us feel superior or more right in our beliefs. This is especially common in competitive environments like workplaces, social media, or even friendships. And here's an example. You judge someone's appearance, career choices, or parenting styles because it makes you feel more confident about your own. And it's the most visible part of judgment culture, if it even exists. So we compare, blame, and judge people who are worse or better than us, because thereby we add more value for ourselves. But the problem is that value isn't approved by others. It's just we judge others to think that we have something what makes us better. And usually it's far from the truth. Evolutionary survival. In-group versus out-group thinking. From an evolutionary perspective, humans evolved to form strong social bonds within their groups while being skeptical of outsiders. This us versus them mentality was once necessary for survival, helping tribes stick together and avoid threat. Today, these instincts manifest in judgment, stereotyping, and prejudice, especially towards people who seem different from us. And here's an example. You might judge someone's behavior, fashion, or cultural background simply because it doesn't align with what you're familiar with. And here's something I learned not so long ago. When we see a stranger wearing something we would never wear, our first instinct is often to judge them. Reality is completely different. And let's break it down in more details. We all know how often we see LGBTQ plus characters in Netflix, movies and series. And just often we see the same predictable storyline. There is an openly gay character who gets bullied by another guy, someone who publicly shames and judges him. But as the story unfolds, we find out that this bad guy is actually struggling with his own identity and, in many cases, is also gay. Sometimes he even falls for the very person he once judged. If you're someone who constantly discusses, judges, or blames others, let's talk directly. The first step is to recall a specific moment when you judged someone, whether it was in your thoughts, with your partner, or with a friend. If you can't remember a single situation, there is a good chance you are just a genuinely kind person. Congratulations! But if you watch this video up to this point, I think you might have something to reflect on. And now let's speak about the power of pausing before judging. Next time you see someone who looks or acts differently from you and you feel the urge to comment or judge, make a pause. Shift your focus and ask yourself, why am I thinking about this person in this way? Take this example. You see a homeless man standing on the street, asking for donations. Your reaction could be one of three things. You feel compassion and give him money. You judge him and think, why should I give you my money? Just go find a job. And third one, you ignore him completely and walk past. Now imagine you gave him money. Later that day, you stop by the store to buy a bottle of wine and you see the same man, this time drunk. Suddenly, a thought hits you. Did I just help him buy alcohol? I gave him money for food because that's why he asked it for. And the next time you see someone asking for donations, you start wondering, how will they actually use this money? Now it affects your future actions. And does it make sense? Here's another scenario. You're at the gym, feeling great. You're wearing your new Nike outfit, freshly showered, smelling nice and focused on your workout. Then a random guy walks in. His clothes are old, he smells bad, and his presence makes your session uncomfortable. Some people might just walk away and find another exercise, but for others, including myself, it's easy to start blaming and judging him for how he looks and smells. But here's the question. What is the real reason behind this judgment? Most of the time is because you can't imagine allowing yourself to be like that person. You take care of your hygiene, so you expect others to do the same. But what if his situation is different? Maybe he has a health condition that affects his body odor. Maybe he had an extremely tough day, an argument with his girlfriend, or is going through deep depression. And the gym is the only thing keeping him together. What if he's grieving, dealing with a funeral, or struggling with something even worse? Would your thoughts about him change then? I think they would. As I always say, and will repeat in many future videos, start with yourself. In one of my previous videos, I talk about recognizing how your body reacts to emotions. That means paying attention to the first moment when you feel anger, anxiety, love, or joy. Learning this skill is crucial because it helps you notice the instant you experience stress. And once you do that, you can act fast and avoid negative outcomes. And yes, of course, there are plenty of absurd and unfair situations. Some people act strangely and some can be aggressive or even dangerous. But in general, if you live in a peaceful environment, you can avoid getting caught up in these destructive thoughts. Now let's focus on your reaction. When you start analyzing your thoughts about other people, when you learn to pause, take a step back and ask yourself why you think about this particular person in this particular way, you are ready for the next step. And that step is asking yourself a crucial question. Where did I learn to judge these things? Let me repeat this because for me, this is one of the most important insights. When you judge someone for something, and especially if you find yourself thinking that what they do is pathetic, it's a red flag for you. You need to dig deep and find the exact moment when you started feeling this way. And if you can't find that moment, then ask yourself, is this what I truly think? Or is it just my shadow speaking? And now, let's talk about the shadow. The shadow is a concept from Carl Jung's analytical psychology, referring to the unconscious part of our personality that contains traits, emotions, and desires we suppress or deny, often because they conflict with our self-image or with what society considers acceptable. In simple terms, it's our hidden self. It's the part of us that we constantly try to hide. The things we don't want to acknowledge, our fears, insecurities, impulses, and even talents we breed. The shadow usually forms in childhood when society and parents teach us what is good and what's bad. But here's the thing. The so-called bad traits don't disappear. We don't erase them. We just push them into our unconscious mind, and our shadow keeps them there. I love examples, so here's one more. We all know that being angry is considered bad. Teachers and parents taught us to suppress that feeling completely, but instead of forgetting what anger is, we simply transform it. It turns into passive aggression, self-doubt, or projecting anger onto others. And this is exactly why we judge or blame people. When we strongly dislike something about someone else, it's often because we subconsciously recognize that same trait in ourselves, but we don't want to admit it. For example, if you don't like what a woman wears on the red carpet during the Oscars, it might not actually be about her dress. It might mean you don't have enough confidence or self-esteem to wear something bold like that yourself. I'm from Ukraine and I grew up in a post-Soviet environment. We were all taught that business isn't for good people. Society conditioned us to believe that rich people with expensive cars must be scammers, that they stole everything from us. But now that I've started my own business, I've had to reprogram my thinking completely. I realized that building a business is simply about selling your knowledge, experience, or skills through services or products. That's it. It's that simple. And yet my shadow is strong. The beliefs I absorbed as a child still surface, making it harder for me to embrace the idea that success and wealth don't have to come from deception. And I hope you get it. Before we dive into how to deal with our shadows, I want to ask you to like this video if you're enjoying it, and drop a comment below. Share your thoughts on today's topic. I really want to know what's on your mind and what you think about your own shadow. And now let's speak about how to deal with your shadow. I've already given some advice about listening to your shadow, asking yourself if you're actually thinking a certain way when you judge someone, or if it's just something from your past creeping in. Maybe it's not even your real opinion, just your shadow revealing itself. You already know this, but I want to add something else. We need to love ourselves, and that's also about self-compassion, which I'll talk about in one of my next videos. But here's the thing. While self-love and self-compassion are things we can build within ourselves, our shadow is what often distances us from society. And the first step to changing that is building a friendship with our shadow. You need to listen to your shadow. You need to understand it. Perceive your shadow as a teacher, because if you deny it, you are not fully you. Your shadow is a huge part of your personality, your individuality. It is you. So how can you ever feel whole if you don't allow your shadow to be part of you? But what does building a friendship with something you can't touch even mean? Once you train yourself to recognize when your shadow is acting, your next step is to build a trusting relationship with it. Accept your emotions, analyze where they come from, And when you realize that a certain emotion was born from a painful experience, create a system to transform it into something positive. Need examples? Believe you or not, I'm a stutter. I've had a stutter since I was 3 years old. And for a long time, I used to blame people who could speak smoothly, people who could say whatever they wanted without constantly thinking about which letter to start with to avoid getting stuck. But I accepted myself. I accepted my shadow. And a few years ago, I even started my own YouTube channel in my native language. Another example, I used to feel frustrated and judge people who spoke English without an accent. Why? Because having an accent is one of my biggest struggles when learning English. My shadow told me to judge them. But no, my accent is part of who I am. It's part of my personality. I speak 3 languages, and even if I can't pronounce every word perfectly, you still understand me. Do you get the point? Accepting your shadow is crucial when it comes to building your happiness. I know, sometimes it's hard to understand, because some of these things seem small or even silly. But I always say, we are just humans, and only we can help ourselves. Yes, counselors, therapists, and mental health professionals can guide you. And if you're in therapy right now, that's amazing. But even therapy works best when you truly understand yourself. So learn who you are. Don't lose your personality, build a friendship with your shadow, and eventually you will be the happiest person on this planet. And thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed my content. I'm Dmitry, and these were my thoughts. See you next time. Bye.